I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, guys.
All right.
Christmas is right here.
Uh-oh.
Listen.
I hear that.
Not bad. Not bad.
Bobby.
You think that's Ronquest calling?
No.
That's not a world
He's
champion.
He's
is
better
it?
than that. It's better than.
Yeah, he
It's
sounds-
definitely
he
not
sounds
Bobby
better
though.
than
No.
Yeah, it's definitely not Bobby.
Who was that? Who was that, Rich?
That was some sound effects or some from a hunt from a while back, and I don't know who was it called.
DUTV.
Yeah, some DUTV guys back in the
DUTV.
day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, guys, welcome West Point, Mississippi. It's the duck season that's going on.
It's the rut.
The rut is happening.
Yeah.
I know of a couple of victims already.
Yes.
There has Christmas is right here on
is
top of us. And
yeah.
Toxie's eating a peppermint milkshake over there that he did
From
not bring
Chick-fil-A,
everybody
the
else
best
one.
peppermint milkshake in America.
Reaching
right
out
now.
to you, Chick-fil-A. Holler at us sometime.
Yeah, we do have a friend at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Supported us for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah,
Thank Miss Diane for this one though. I went home in a hurry a minute ago when she had bought one, had it in the freezer for me. So I thought I would torture y'all by eating it during the podcast.
yeah. Well, you are
Yum.
torturing us.
It's
Yeah.
so
It's
good.
working.
Yeah. So, guys, I tell you right now, this is one of my favorite times of the year.
Absolutely.
We've got a couple of guests. I'll get them introduced in a second.
Of course it is.
But I want to throw this out to you. You know, there are people like up north in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Their duck season probably is ended.
It has.
Now the ducks are all coming down here. Had you rather be up there and get to hunt in October and November, or down here and hunt in December during the Christmas holidays or whatnot? If you had your druthers, what would you pick?
That's a silly question. You know me.
Yeah, I'm the
I
same
am
way.
like Dorothy on the Wizard of Oz. Ain't no place like home. That's just how I am.
I love it down here because,
Regardless.
yeah, the ducks, the rut, the holidays, it's all kind of comes together at the same time. So it's a good time to be in the South.
It is a really good time. But you think about those guys up north. I mean, they don't really have that much to do during the Christmas holidays. I mean, they may have some late muzzleloader hunts
No, they
for
get to
deer
shovel
and stuff.
snow.
Yeah.
Ice fish.
Yeah,
Ice fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't say
Yeah,
they don't.
yeah,
They-
I don't know if we'd have enough time if we had, because we're working during.
They
all
probably
this
still
time
have a
trying to do
late
gamekeeping
season. I'll tell you
stuff.
what, the ones I've seen some of the, I've never been, but the late season whitetail hunting up there, if you've got food, is
Probably pretty
crazy.
good.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
I bet it would be.
Yep.
All right, let me set the table. So Dudley is MIA. We
don't know where he
think
is.
he's on vacation.
Supposedly.
Yeah, and we think he might be. There's no telling what he's doing. So Mac is sitting over here, and Mac, you love duck hunting, so this is right up your alley. Mac recently got a new gun, Lanny.
I know. I've been looking at it.
It's a man licker.
A man like
So I'm gonna start calling Mac the man licker.
Mac the
wait a
Man.
minute, Bobby.
But I love a Star
what
man
is,
licker.
Yeah, what is the gun I bought from you, Carl, that you originally
I
had?
tell you what, a Star it's a fantastic rifle. A Star man licker. So I'm not being. I'm being very positive about
But
that.
there's a style of stock that's a man licker stock
I
to
think
where
it's
it
that
runs
full-length
It runs
stock.
all the way almost to the end of the barrel.
Yeah,
So, but that's not what Matt got. He got a Star.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's from Star man licker. It's a great looking gun though, Mac. You should enjoy it.
I'm excited.
All right. So then next to him is Lanny, who is
It is
eager
me.
to fisticuff today. I can tell.
Huh?
Already, you know,
What are you talking about?
You've been.
I don't know what he's saying.
What did
Then
Bobby
the-
do? I think he's so excited about getting out here and going to see Jim,
Yeah, he's trying to. He's
which
running
I didn't
through
know
this pretty quick.
about till
yeah.
just now.
Well, I mean,
He's gonna be
if
out
you'd be around a
starting
little more
tomorrow.
often, I can communicate with you.
Hey, you text and email anytime you need something for your own good. So don't even go down that road.
Okay, and then
I'll just warn you up front, Jim. Though, don't get him near anywhere you think you might ever go turkey hunting.
Yeah, he's going to be looking.
Because he is a Russian KGB spy on turkeys.
So what is fisticuffs?
well, you just like verbal jousting today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
With you.
Repartee.
When do we not?
When
do we
did
not?
that
verbally
ever
joust?
stop?
Yeah, well, it just seemed like you're a little more into it today than ever. And
Oh.
so Toxie's down there eating a milkshake. Then over here looking on through the magic of Zoom, we've got Jim Ronquest, who's somewhere in Arkansas, in the middle of the ducks.
All right.
And then we've got Dr. Brad Cohen from Tennessee Tech University,
Yes, I'm excited about
the
this
Cohen Lab.
Yes.
We've been seeing this guy all over the internet with all this research and duck banding and all this. So
On the net.
we're going to be able to ask him a bunch of
the net.
questions. So welcome, guys.
Yeah, thanks for
So
having us.
my biggest question for Jimbo, is that your truck I just saw on our Instagram page?
Yes. Well, it's really our truck, but because it's under my
Watch for life.
management, it's mine.
It's keeping
You
it at
know.
your house. I got it.
That's right. That's right. I keep the keys to that truck.
That one is a keeper now.
That's a cool
original
truck.
tree
That's
stamp,
cool.
painted in original.
That's
tree
a cool story behind that how that truck came to be. So we knew we wanted to do this truck project from the Drake side of things, just to have it as a cool marketing tool, and kind of knew what the budget was. And I've been looking for different trucks. In my background, I used to mess with mud run trucks and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of had a little knowledge of what I was looking for. So I was sitting on eBay one Friday night having a cocktail, trying to look around, find an old truck somewhere. And this sucker popped up, and it was the original 85 Chevrolet. They called it a 1.25 tons. It was the military version. They called it a Cuck V model something, 1008 or something to that effect. Anyway, it had the big Dana 60 front end, GM 14 bolt rear end, 456 gears, Detroit locker in the back. I mean, it had all the good stuff on it, relatively low miles. But I'm like, there's no way I can look at this thing. I'm going to get screwed 9 ways from Sunday about this. So I took another sip of my drink and I thought about it a little more. And I said, what the heck? Hit the buy now button. So I thought, man, what's going to happen now? Well, nobody asked me for a credit card number. Nobody asked me for my name. They said, you got 7 days to do the deal. So I sent the old boy a text. And I called him the next morning bright and early, and come to find out he's in Western Indiana. And I had a nephew about 1.5 hours from him. So I sent him over there. And lo and behold, this guy owns your basic small town mechanic shop, works on everybody's trucks, cars. So I'm thinking it's going to be in pretty good shape. And the rest is history. The rocker panels weren't rusted out.
Wow.
The 062 diesel had been swapped to a rebuilt Chevrolet crate motor, 454 big block in it. Was in relatively pretty good shape, and went to the folks, our friends combined, the folks at D&W Outdoors and D&W Automotive in Jonesboro, and we sat and drew up some ideas of building the bed and whatnot, and the rest is history. That bed's custom built from the ground up by the D&W folks. It's just been a really cool project.
It's a good looking truck.
It is
Yeah,
a
it is.
vintage, cool, beefy, really
Utility-
cool. So,
utility truck.
Yep.
It's one that
Oh, yeah.
you'd want to put it in low range and just let's see what this thing will do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to eventually. Like if Toxie wasn't
You
around,
can tell Bobby wasn't the one having to work on it if he would
That's
say
right.
that.
I went scouting the other afternoon. I wanted to get to a spot where I could see for a pretty good ways over from river bottoms here locally. And it'd been kind of wet, and I just kind of eased along through some stuff, and it was like no big deal.
I bet not.
I bet not.
All right, I'm going to steer this. Brad, I'm looking at you. I got a question. You being the doctor here. This is about deer, but it also has to do with acorns. And we're hearing that there's not a lot of acorns in some parts of the country this year. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing a lot of people post like they'll have a buck hanging up in the skinning shed, and the skin will be off of him, and the fat will be yellow as opposed to white. And then you read all the comments, and people are saying that's a deer that's losing weight rapidly, and that's why the fat is yellow. Is there any truth to that, or is that just some kind of, urban legend?
Man, that's a good question. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to go with the urban legend if I had to pick one of the two, because you know what the truth is, if I haven't heard about it, it's definitely not true. So there you go. Like,
Wow, he's a lot like you, Bobby.
but the truth is, like, I've never heard of that in my life. And I've shot a lot of deer at different times. And it probably has more to do with what they're eating than anything else. Deer probably eating something that stains it, just like,
Yeah, seems like I remember biologist notable that checking the amount of kidney fat was a sign of
Health.
if they had excess food, fat, and it was storing it beyond their needs and so forth. But the color, I've never heard of being a sign of anything up there. Because, I've seen them fat as pigs, and it was yellowish.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And white. And seen them fat, and it's yellow too. White.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it every different color. I think what you're talking about more is, what would scare me is if I was shooting a deer this time of year that didn't have any fat on it.
Yes, that's absolutely
So
right.
that would be it,
Yeah.
But if they have fat right now, no matter what the color, that's okay.
A lot of conversation too about shooting does and this
Not
and
shooting
that.
enough.
Not shooting enough, or people, have a kind of opinion of not to shoot them too, and that's kind of been surfacing over the last couple of weeks. Kind of interesting conversation.
Why did they say not to shoot them?
They think that it's less stressful on bucks, which is interesting from my perspective. To us, it's all about carrying capacity. That's the most defining factor, and you have to adjust.
It's
miles
simple.
per
It's
second.
simple science, and carrying capacity plus miles.
Right.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
That's just facts.
Yep. All right, so guys, we want to turn this. We want to talk ducks. Look, Jim Ronquest is a legend. He's world champion duck caller. I'll probably show you a thing or two the next couple of days.
I'm willing to learn.
He's with,
Don't worry.
Drake Waterfowl, the face of Drake. He's
Yeah,
a great-
knowing is being shown exactly not what to do is still learning. You're right.
So let's look over here at Brad. Brad, will you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get to this place in Cookeville, Tennessee, and where you're doing your life's work?
It's a pretty long story, but basically I grew up on Long Island, New York, so 2 hours outside the city, and grew up in suburbia. Dad fished and hunted, brought me along. It's who I am. We talk about, why do you hunt? It's like, well, how do you explain who you are?
Yeah.
And so I went up to college right next to deer camp where I grew up hunting. And then decided I didn't want to work a day in the office, so I was going to be a wildlife biologist. So I Googled white-tailed deer, which were my favorite thing to hunt at the time. And Carl Miller's name came up at Google Scholar. I emailed him. The rest is history. I stayed there at the University of Georgia for my master's, my PhD, then worked with Mike Chamberlain a good bit doing turkey work, and had a kid. And I was on soft money there. It's basically like if the state's willing to pay your salary, life is good. But then when you have a kid, you're like, I can't be a salesman anymore. I need a real salary. And so Tennessee Tech had a job. I knew the people at TWRA who manage everything. So I took the job, and first thing we got to work on is working on a project with deer populations, and the next one was ducks, and we've just kind of picked up from there, doing a lot of tracker work with ducks up and down the Mississippi Flyway.
So when you're doing this research, do you get to kind of decide, hey, I really like the duck stuff better, I want to spend more time doing that, or is it what the state needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what I get enjoyment from is working closely with the state to give them the research they need to inform policy. And that could be also federal partners. So I'll get excited over any question. I have certain favorites at certain moments in time. When you're doing this stuff with these ducks and you're some of the first groups doing this research, this technology is brand new. So some of this stuff is just so cool. It's just neat. How can you not get excited about it? But because it's new and neat, the state agency keeps coming up with more and more questions that this would answer. So it's a reciprocal relationship. Jamie Feddersen, who's the waterfowl biologist for Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, one of my best friends. Him and I work together on everything. So it's back and forth. But in the end, my goal is to give the state what they need.
No. That's what a resource for the state to be able to have questions. And he said forming policy. So they're trying to form policy based on science. Mm-hmm. So to have a resource like this is fantastic.
You know how it is. I think, the reason I go on podcasts and all this other stuff, I think a lot about, my dad is on the other side of it. Even though I do all this research for wildlife, my dad keeps up a little bit, but it's the agencies are bad and they're trying to destroy the deer herd. They're all the conspiracies, right? And so I think politics, right? You're not up there explaining the science to your constituents, being transparent, explaining what's going on. Then you're not going to get the agreement that the state agency really needs to do effective wildlife management. You want to do good conservation, you got to explain the science.
Okay, Josh, you're going to have to quit digging into that styrofoam.
He's scraping at this point. I think he's eating more styrofoam than he is ice cream.
I'll move the mic, but I'm not going to stop.
Okay, so look, this study that you've done around around hunting pressure, it's fascinating. And could you let's start there. Let's start with the banding process and what you've learned.
So every year we put about 150 GPS transmitters on mallards, out in western Tennessee. This is right on near the Mississippi River and some of the river tributary systems around there. And the first part of the project started about 6 years ago. And we went out and we put all these GPS transmitters out and we said, okay, these ducks, we're going to put this transmitter out and we go out to a refuge, we bait the area. And even though you're looking at 100,000 ducks, I was like, when they told me they only want me to catch 100, I was like, I'll give me a crab net and I'll scoop them for you. This is easy. It's not that easy. Like
you're right.
They're weary. They're smart. They don't like we put a trail camera out and they run, like they'd move away from it. I'm like, what's going on? So finally, we kind of figured out what we needed to do. And we trap a couple here, a couple there with bait and basically glorified crab trap, slowly getting them used to coming into this trap. Mm-hmm. We put the transmitters out and said, okay, well, at least half of these, if not more, are going down to Arkansas or across to Arkansas, down to Louisiana, over to Missouri, and we won't have a study. So let's put out a lot. And that's not what happened. All of our ducks basically stayed right in the area where we put transmitters out, and about 25% come back to the exact same spot the next year. And so what we did, we got these transmitters around. We want to know why ducks are doing what they're doing. So we went out and we flew aerial surveys. So we got in a Cessna and we flew the entire study area. And, everyone hunts out of blinds where we are. So it's really easy to pick those blinds out. If you ever get in a Cessna or you get really high up in a drone, you'll start to wonder how a duck ever dies. Mm-hmm. And so you're like, all right, we just GPS marked every single spot where there was a blind. And then these blinds, like spinning wing decoys, mojos, we can see them in the Cessna. So we go, okay, if the spinning wing decoys are on, that's hunting pressure. They're hunting it. They're actively hunting it. At the same time, we're doing real-time assessments of food. We're doing so much stuff. It's everything. We've got recording units out listening to shotgun blasts so we can figure out how the ducks are moving and how that's affecting hunter success. And long story short, 80% of the blinds in our area were hunted. And it didn't matter if it was a Wednesday or a Saturday, the beginning of the season or the end of the season. It was constant and chronic hunting pressure. And there was about a blind every 70 acres.
Wow.
And, and then we wonder why ducks are stale.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And we've always talked about how, blinds just stand out, they really do, especially from the sky.
Well, it's also a duck isn't going to just sit there. And even if they're, they come into their decoys the first time. Well, the friends that leave, they're not going to let you come shoot at them again. Right. They know where the safety is on the area. Those refuges, the whole idea of the project originally was, what's the point of state and federal refuges? Could we get what happened if we got rid of all of them? What's the purpose? We even disturbed them, and I'll tell you what happened later. But what happens is they hear the first volley go off next to their buddy, and they're back to the refuge and they're on their pattern. They're not going to go and decoy into you.
So the refuges then, so their purpose is really is to be a refuge for these ducks.
Mm-hmm. If you think about it, think how crazy that is. Think about flying thousands of miles down to where you're going to winter, and 90-something% of your usable space, the areas you could sit, you're going to get shot at during the day. That wouldn't be a lot of fun. Those refuges are absolutely critical to waterfowl ecology and duck distributions.
Man, that really kind of brings that to light.
Yeah, more refuges are needed, no doubt about it.
Is that shocking to you?
It is thinking about, that dense of a blind population. Having that many blinds every,
one blind per 70 acres. That's a lot.
Yeah, that part's shocking. What his findings are about the ducks do not shock me at all. I absolutely, I can't give you quantified research on it. I promise you, I know the effect. Our life here changed 180 degrees, having what I never dreamed, the kind of, other than when we don't have water, consistent, and y'all seen it, ridiculously good, was when we gave up our best spot, which is a big area.
And let it lay.
It's 200 acres of water that had everything for them, and just we're not going to hunt anymore. That's our own refuge, and it changed everything for us, for the better.
You don't want to miss that call. No. When you get the call at the end of the season to go to that refuge.
We might go in there one time.
And we usually don't, but sometimes the very last weekend I'll let them go one time. But by then, one time's not hurting it too bad. But, the bottom line every time for everyone out there is nature evolves. That is the history of the world. So when you do stuff, it's going to change things in some form, or it's going to react to that. I mean, they're just going to, it's not like they're so smart they think or something. It's like we give turkeys too much credit, but they're going to evolve. And so there's no question that pounding and pounding and pounding without, I mean, I believe, and he can tell us for sure, and Jimbo can surely tell us, but I believe the people that have the great consistent waterfowl stuff are going to have somewhere, it could be just a federal place, some kind of refuge. A lot of, the buzzword for years has been people that really manage, hard, have a quote unquote rest pond. That's the buzzword. I've heard so many people talk about a rest pond. Jim Post probably knows 100 people have a place and they have a dedicated rest pond. And those people are the ones who have the most consistent hunting. And so, I don't know, it's just no surprise to me at all that people out there that just pound the ducks. I mean, I think in some cases they might be right on the river with a constant fresh flow. But other than that, I mean, I just don't understand why they don't get the effect of it, because it's clear now.
Jim, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, one thing people got to keep in mind that disturbance is pressure. Spinning wing decoys are pressure. You run your boat through them is pressure. You blow a duck call at them is pressure. And evolution, like Toxie says, evolution's ongoing. They're steady getting better at staying away from hunters, and hunters are steady getting better at tricking ducks. And, Mother Nature's doing her thing there. And I think a lot of what we see is that, and yeah, there's days can be tougher than others. We had a fair one this morning, but there was a big weather change last night. There were some storms, there's some rain, so ducks were out sampling pretty good, checking other areas. So you're able to talk some into giving up. But for the most part, those ducks are going to settle back in once this water settles back in. So again, pressure, the more you can relieve pressure on the ducks you're hunting, the better off you're going to be. Here's a big one that my buddies and I get in a discussion about. You hear about, let's take mallard harvest in general. People talk about harvesting mallard hens, and I get that. The old saying, dead hens can't lay eggs. Absolutely understand that. But when you look at the compensatory idea that hen harvest overall versus the pressure, if you're managing the place and it's pretty good, go on, shoot your 4 mallards and get out. In my opinion.
Absolutely.
Speaking for me here. Go get the pressure off, have a good hunt, enjoy it, but get out of there. Let them have it back. Let the ducks have it back. And I think they'll be better in the long run.
Well, I'll put it on a bigger one, which is, like out in Arkansas and some other places they have, and in Tennessee too, we do. This is not like what Jim is saying exactly, like, once you shoot them, get out. There's probably the right time at some point. If you leave early enough, you're good. But some places make you stop hunting at like 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, noon, 3, whatever. Ducks, based on some other research also done out of Doug Osborne's lab and other places, ducks don't perceive that any differently than a place that was hunted all day.
I watched a video that, I'm trying to think of the name of it. I think it was called Pressure.
Oh,
Pressure.
Under Pressure? Yeah, that was by Brandon Martin with Daybreak Outdoors.
I saw a piece in that, and you had a quote that said that these ducks were making 2 flights a day. They were leaving before daylight, before legal shooting light, and then they were maybe another flight was after shooting hours. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, if the best part about this project is I get to sit trapping these refuges in the morning or in the evening and watch 200,000 ducks leave and come back. And they're 3-dimensional, right? So all they got to do is get about a couple 100 feet in the air and they're unshootable. And just to watch them like that, what our ducks do is they, at dark 30, let's just say 15 minutes after legal shooting light, right at legal shooting light, they start leaving the refuge. Like all of a sudden it just lifts off. Like it's the most amazing sight you'll ever see. 100,000 ducks leaving all together, and they're going to eat. They will, once they get to wherever they're going though, they're not trading around at night. They don't quote unquote turn nocturnal. Like they don't move. They just hang out and wait for the people to come into that place and kick them off that morning. And so the second that happens, when the guys get towards the blind and they kick them all up, here come the ducks again. And they'll just, that dance, if you will, just keeps happening. And they're just waiting for the right cue. And if they don't get kicked off one day, they still will lift off. But, after about 3-4 days of resting a spot, they'll start to stay there more during the daytime. They'll start to hang out. But if you're not giving them at least 4 days, 3-4 days, you might as well not be resting a spot at all.
That's really
I
interesting.
get that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced similar for sure. For no doubt, in saying whatever 35 years or so of messing with it around here, they have become more and more. And of course, we had like a 2.5 week season last year because of the drought, and we're just now getting started this year. But they're getting more and more. You know, he's right, not nocturnal, but they are feeding at night. There's no question. Whenever we go, and y'all have been. We pull up in a place I have that's completely wide open, got lots of food, you know, usually it's millet, but we might have something else there. And they almost, not even any cover to roost or anything. There's no way they'd spend the night there. You go in, it's just absolutely inundated. You're just getting up so many ducks in the, you know, the Ranger headlights going to the blind, and oh my gosh, it's going to be unbelievable. And daylight breaks, and it's just crickets. And on those days, you normally don't even start getting any meaningful action until maybe 8:30. And then, you know, it might could get pretty good then and all. But, and honestly, those days, I don't think you hurt your ducks as bad because I'm a personal believer. It's like you go somewhere where they're really feeding heavy, there's no ducks there, and then, boy, right at the very first daylight, they are in there trying to, the normal historical go right at daylight. And then you may be shooting over in the first 15 minutes, shooting over every duck you have. I think that's the worst thing you can do for it because one thing I don't even need a biologist to prove to me, they got to get up and eat every day. So you're sitting there where they want to eat and you blast them and you stay there all morning, they're going to go find somewhere else to eat and you've lost them. That's just like my opinion, but they're going to have to eat. And so I don't know. I started out saying, but for sure they've become more and more nocturnal. And they'll come in to start feeding even before what you're talking about. They'll come in like late in the afternoon, maybe hour to 30 minutes before, but especially coming in heavy to a feeding spot when you would normally think they're going to a roosting spot. And to see it more every year.
Go ahead, Brad.
I think it's just, if people could just think common sense, it's like, you know, if you and I were getting shot at everywhere, well, why would I move before then? And then why would I move from a place where I'm going to get my belly filled no matter what? There's no reason to trade around in the dark. They can barely see in the dark, truly. Like they don't have really good nighttime vision. I could tell you from when we band ducks, like if we put a transmitter or a band on a duck and it's nighttime and we throw it out, it just goes right into the water and swims away. It doesn't fly off. Whereas every other duck that we throw out during the daytime will fly off. So like they're just going to hang out. They're going to get their belly full and they're just waiting. They're waiting for the inevitable. You know, you talk about food. With warm weather, ducks really don't need a lot of food. Like right now, a duck could go days. They'll still eat. Don't get me wrong. They're bored. Yeah. They're gonna go eat, right? Just like you and I when we're sitting on the couch. But they don't need it. It's not when temperatures get well below freezing that they really need that food for metabolism to keep them hot.
Hey guys, listen up. Let me tell you about an awesome deal Springfield Armory is offering now through the end of 2024. When you purchase a brand new model 2020 Waypoint or Redline rifle, you'll receive a model 2020 Rimfire rifle with a black synthetic stock absolutely free. That's an over $400 value on the house. You know we love Springfield Armory and their top-notch products you'd be proud to hand down to your kids and grandkids. So why wait? Learn more about this incredible offer at GearUp2024.com. Springfield Armory. Defend your legacy.
See these people? When the clock strikes 5, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. They have to do these things. They have to do those things. Enter the all-new LS Tractor MT2 and MT2E, a relentless force of innovation. Redesigned with a new hood and cab built for comfort and visibility, with enhanced lifting capacity to get the job done. Making these people the ones everyone else calls those people. Visit your local LS Tractor dealer today.
I'm just thinking about, here on, our public land waterway. Think about, Laney, how many more ducks you see resting on the main channel in the last few years.
They're safe.
I don't remember that growing up, but now if sometimes, this time of year you drive down, the main river, you'll jump a group of mallards, just on the side of the river channel.
There's no doubt. I don't think people get enough credit for, how smart they are. But it seems like, all this talk about pressure and how they're avoiding hunting and everything else, then we would be seeing an increase in population. So
it's not the same. And here's the thing, a couple things. First of all, hunting pressure, I think is the highest it's ever been, even though duck numbers.
I agree 100%.
Duck hunter numbers are down.
Yes.
I think mud motors, Onyx, et cetera, leasing has put a lot of money investment in it, and people are going to hunt. But I don't know if guns, there's a weird relationship between the number of ducks that are killed and duck populations. It's a weak relationship at best. Duck populations are down right now because the prairies are an absolute mess. The conservation programs like CRP are poorly funded and not competitive. Corn prices and the agricultural industry in general is changing rapidly. You go up to the Dakotas during summer, go up to the prairie potholes and see, farmers are turning over every single thing that and this has been going on for years, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like everything that can become planted is planted. Well, we shouldn't be surprised when all of our prairie nesting duck populations are crashed when there's no good rain.
Right. Because everything's in production.
Yeah, that's and that's been going on a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pressure,
Well documented.
we talk about pressure all the time as far as wildlife is concerned. It's the fourth thing at food, water coverage, pressure management. There's no doubt about it. So just interesting. I think it's really interesting that I don't think people give ducks enough credit for being as slick as they are, from sight and pressure response and everything else.
I do.
Yeah.
I said it.
I promise you I do.
I know you do.
Yep.
So, hey, Brad, let me ask you this, and Jimbo, I'd love to get your feedback as well. But, Brad, if you could just like wave a magic wand, would you, and people just had to do whatever you said, would you push and say, okay, we're only going to hunt 3 days a week or 2 days a week or this time frame during a day? Would you make changes? What would you suggest?
Yeah. So it depends on what they want. But if it's just stacking, getting good hunts in, quality hunts, 2 days a week, back to back, resting for 5 days. I don't really care when they're in and out. There's a good argument to be made that you can even get in, you can kick the ducks off that property. Like I've seen really good data that says if you get a duck up at 10 a.m., something like that from a spot, they're less likely to leave. Like they'll just fly around and come back in an hour or two to it. Like it's just natural bump them off versus, dark 30 when you bump them off. That's more of a severe disturbance to them.
Right.
So, but 2 days a week would be the most I would do. If I had a real magic wand where I could control the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, I would structure seasons so that I had a bunch of breaks. So like you couldn't it wouldn't be like 60 days, 2 breaks or 3 breaks. It would be like 8 breaks spread across 90 days.
I like that.
I do
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
actually. But I mean,
Makes
yeah,
sense.
there's the other thing too, Bobby, is like he said it too. There's not a 1-to-1 between more ducks and better hunting. It's not, it doesn't just, they're not one equals the other. And so, especially Jim on this too, is like, I equate it to like hunting an area that you have, and I'm just talking to the general public that loves duck hunting. And like we're talking about all these things, we're complaining about it, and what can you do about it? What can we offer up that they might could do about it? And a lot of them already know way more than I'll ever know. But I equate it to whitetail. So if you have a travel corridor, you could hunt it a lot. Especially if you're way to it and you're careful and you're halfway use some common sense about deer. Man, you're waiting for deer to pass by. When you hunt a food source for deer, especially, and the more I've always said every time you disturb them, you cut your chances in half. Now I know resting it for a while can recover some, but especially older deer, it's like so. Every time you go and unless you're lucky, you're going to have to disturb the deer around whatever food. It's a food plot or acorns falling or feeder or whatever it is. So for ducks, if you can find, and Jim, it just seems like to me more and more, they crave those great loafing spots, those safety spots to get away from it. They've been feeding most of the night already. If you can find good loafing spots, you can hunt them a lot more then in fact, if you have a place that a lot of ducks are feeding and you know you got feed to last through most of the year, just don't ever hunt them there. No matter how tempting it is, develop some spots with cover. That's what timber's so great at, is that loafing safety thing. And it's so much easier to call. You can call and, be hidden from. It's so much more fun. Your shooting percentage goes way up. And so people being conscious of developing, and it doesn't have to be real far away from they can hear you shooting. If your main, you got like a rest spot and it's a lot of food and ducks are feeding there, you could be not that far away shooting and it doesn't even bother them,
Pretty crazy. So I equate that. I got a saying I said forever. Actually, I learned this from a turkey hunting buddy of ours. I can't take credit for it. It's come from Ron Jolly. We going to Texas on a turkey hunt, and this applies to ducks maybe more so than turkeys. Said there ain't but two places you can kill them. He said, where they at? And I thought, and it kind of comes down to what you just said, Toxie. One is where they're at, meaning someplace that they're feeding heavy, they're on the feed, they're going to be there. And the other one is someplace they don't mind coming to. That's those loafing areas that you can hunt later in the day. You can take trading ducks. Here, when there's a lot of ducks around, we got ducks trading back and forth in the morning. It's pretty good. And I would rather be under a good line of ducks in some open hardwoods than I would be in a rice or a cornfield or a millet patch full of headed out grain that ducks are feeding in every day. Because when you pull up those places in the morning, like you said, you run them off, they leave. If they're there when I get there, it's not going to be as good as day. But this morning, we had a lot of trading ducks. Again, they're out sampling, looking for this new water and whatnot from the rain last night. And we were hunting in some real pretty woods and basically talk them into giving up. That's the same deal you're talking about, hunting the loafing area. And they will take more pressure. That's where there's places in this part of the world that will stand that daily pressure. But, we're out of the woods, try to be out of the woods by 9:30 or 10 o'clock, let them have it in the afternoons, that sort of stuff. So, again, trading ducks will take more pressure than hunting an area that's full of food.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So, Brad, let me ask this. When you think about, you're studying pressure and you're paying attention to this, if you go back and look at the way things were 40 years ago and 20 years ago, or have we, the way we hunt now, or is just the methods that we're doing it with these mud motors and stuff, is all that contributing to much more pressure?
Well, there's a couple things there. I think, we had these recording units out and we could literally hear, just understand that mud motor is so loud.
Wow.
We could hear that mud motor in the background, and all of a sudden, even it was dark, right? They're going to their spot, but we'd hear the whistling wings of the ducks lifting off right as we heard that mud motor. So I think that's part of it. I think just the piecemealing of properties. There used to be one farmer that had some land. He let a couple people hunt it. Water would get up, you'd go hunt it. And now that's privatized. That's 4 different pieces, and those guys have a lot of money in it. I think those are the things. One of our projects right now is just working with private landowners to incentivize these private land rest areas. So we're working with them to basically say, hey, we'll pay you what it would be worth to just not touch it, not go near it, not disturb it. 100 acres, thick, nasty stuff that you would never hunt buckbrush, just thick. Let it go. Don't go in there. When you see those ducks land in there, let them be. And we're just basically trying to connect these corridors up and down. And I think, those things make a big difference, because there's not a single hunter out there that doesn't say, I remember when such and such had a farm and he never hunted it, but there'd be ducks stacked up there. And those were the good days when we had ducks.
Wow.
I want to give a shout out to Elon Musk, and maybe he'll develop an electric mud motor because it's so loud right now. I mean, hey, surely with the technology,
and
everything else is electric.
I live on public waterway.
Oh gosh,
all night long I hear them from my house. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, they're having a good time apparently, but they're not just duck hunting.
but Brad, I mean, historically, there have been a lot of duck hunters through the years, and there have been a lot of duck clubs. So I don't feel like. I mean, you guys would know. I probably should have done some research as to number of duck hunters in 1950 versus, 2020. But I think historically there have been a lot of duck hunters through the years.
It's the last numbers I saw. It was getting well behind the number of turkey hunters. It didn't used to be that way. Jim may be more up
Yeah, I
on
would
it than
think
me
it would.
being with Drake like he is, but I think there's maybe 20%, 25% more turkey hunters today, and I'm gonna bet you in the 90s there was more waterfowl hunters than turkey hunters. So, and turkey hunting's grown, and although it's been under siege here in the last 5 or 6 years or so, the resource from 90s to today has grown so much more turkey-wise and geographic dispersion than ducks. And I'm gonna ask him because I don't know this for sure. It's just like a lot of this stuff, just my opinion of what I've heard and all. But I mean, the Mississippi flyway and even the eastern, because of other reasons too, seems to be under more digression than Central and especially Pacific. I mean, Pacific is like, well, they have a 90-day season. They can shoot like seven mallards. And I didn't, like we had the guy on before, and it's like, what's the number one harvest in the whole country? Was that Arkansas? Is that Louisiana? Texas? So big, it's California. You think anti-hunting state or whatever? They have the best and most waterfowl out there. So it's not the same thing. I guess my question to him is talk about there's not the same things going on everywhere. And guess what? They don't have quite as much pressure as what we put on them in the core, Mississippi flyway too. Right?
I imagine Jim's been around enough to answer that better than I am. I mean, what do you think, Jim?
Well, I think you're on the right track there. Part of it, I think, comes into the culture of our culture. We live in a duck hunting culture up and down the Mississippi River, either side of it.
We do.
That's why the Mississippi Flyway always has higher harvest rate than Pacific or the Atlantic. That's a big part of it. And like you said, California will always rank up there every year in the top 3 or 4 of overall harvest. Arkansas still remains the number one mallard harvest state for whatever reason. When you talk about those duck snap number sales, if you go back to the mid-'70s, I've got this report somewhere. We were selling somewhere north of 2 million federal duck snaps in the USA. Now we're selling just over 1 million. However, that being said, those folks that are duck hunters are more serious about it.
Oh, yeah.
Arkansas is selling roughly 100,000 state stamps a year. West Tennessee is no different than here. You just kind of consider it in the Mississippi Delta part of the same area, southeast Missouri. That pressure, especially on mid-continental mallards, is high in that overall number one wintering region of mallard ducks. And people are, even though there's less hunters, there's more pressure in those hotbed areas. And I think we're definitely seeing that evolution's affecting that, along with the climate change and weather conditions. It's changed that mallard wintering distribution. It's elongated it quite a bit. And along with all that pressure there, we're just making them smarter and smarter. But to your point, there's less duck hunters today putting more pressure on them than there was in, say, the mid-'70s, early '80s.
Interesting.
I think what happened back then, people would go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and Grandpa would have a little piece flooded up in the back, or bio would be up and it'd be backed out in a stretch of woods that nowadays have been cut. But you go back there and ducks would be in them, and you'd have a couple good mornings duck hunting, but you bought your stamps. Nowadays, man, I'm like, gosh dang, I got to work in the morning. Oh, heck, I'm going to miss a day. Goodness, that's horrible. When we're probably better off on them days that it's not going to be real productive or conducive to duck hunting. Sleep in, do something for mama, get some work done, make the boss man happy, and then pick your days to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Are there less areas to hunt now? I mean, like with all this, like the channelizing of rivers, and I mean, is there less places that ducks can loaf? I mean, with agriculture or with waterways, I mean.
I think so. Fortunately, we do have a refuge system. Both state and federal are, no telling what would happen to our ducks. And I don't wish any ill will on all my farming buddies here at home. But man, if it's a dry fall, there's tractors in the field getting everything ready to go for next spring. If it would have stayed dry here, and I'm probably pretty center in what's known as the Arkansas Grand Prairie where I'm sitting, and on that side of the highway, everything drains to the White River. On my side of the highway, everything drains to Meter Basin. Give you just a juxtaposition of that. Had it not rained, everything would have been worked up, and that's nothing against them. No different than what's happened in Prairie, Canada. However, they're trying to be productive. They're trying to make a living row crop farming. we are passionate outdoorsmen that are also incentivized a little bit because it is also, we've turned our avocations into our vocations. So we pay attention to all of that. But it's definitely had a part to play, Mac, and in losing some of the public areas, a lot of the private ground that's off limits now, or just worked up and it's not even feasible to hunt it. I definitely think that's increased the pressure on ducks because we don't have as many places to hunt as we once did.
Hey, Brad, all this research that you've done, did it really change or improve your thought process of what you thought about the refuge system? When I think about what you told me, it made me think somebody really had a vision many years ago and said we need to set aside this stuff and it be a refuge for a waterfowl. And do we have enough of those?
Yeah. So when I started the project, I didn't know one way or the other what it would be like. I could see both sides. Like, well, it's holding all of our ducks, so that's why can't I shoot them? Well, they're over there. And after the study, we even went and disturbed the refuges. So we'd spend hours rallying the ducks. We'd rip through with a mud motor and get hundreds of thousands of ducks up, and then we were able to listen to like the shotgun blasts that were happening during it to track duck movement. They are so petrified to leave that refuge that they would literally just fly around the refuge until we left, and then they'd land back down. They would decrease their movements that day, so they wouldn't fly the next day. They were like, whoa, this was my safe spot, what's going on? And actually our hunting success, so the number of shotgun blasts that we were hearing, decreased by about 50% on days we disturbed the refuge. So we got them completely off their pattern and messed them up. If that doesn't sell you about the importance of the refuge, I don't know what will. Now, you said, are there not enough? There's not nearly enough. If you look at the amount of food that's out there, I think there's a really interesting argument to be made that food is not limiting for waterfowl, at least some species right now. But what definitely is limiting for all waterfowl species is safe areas. And our research shows that about 90% of our ducks are at any moment in time within about 2 miles of a refuge in Western Tennessee. Okay, in our area. Might be different where you are. But that means that there's only about 10 to 15% of the ducks on the rest of about 80% of the landscape. Well, that's you're either in the right spot or you're in the wrong spot.
Right.
And so those refuges are the critical habitats. As a biologist, I'm always thinking about what's the limiting factor here. What's affecting carrying capacity? To me, it's those rest areas. It's not what we would typically think of as like food or something like that.
Well, over here, I can speak for, again, Arkansas, this part of pretty much all of eastern Arkansas. If it wasn't for the private rest areas, the legacy properties, the old school legacy properties here that have their own refuges, rest areas, we would be in a world of hurt. Now, if everything's right, we've got tons of habitat that the good Lord just put here, but that doesn't happen as much as it used to.
Nope.
So,
well, I want to just follow up because there's one other part of this. If we want to kill more ducks, we want better quality hunting. A duck that goes about 75% to 80% of our ducks used one refuge the entire year, the entire winter. So in 75 days, 90 days, they stayed in the one refuge. So they're not trading back and forth either, which is really, it just is like, if I'm going to fly 2 miles to eat, I'm not going to fly another 8 miles to the next refuge way down the way. I'm going to just turn around and go back to the one I came from. And so, that's how you get really stale ducks. They learn that that's Jim's decoys over there and I'm not going there. And so if we want to connect and have ducks moving around more, we talk about these legacy properties, these close proximity rest areas. Those ducks are trading all around. And so they're not as familiar with each landscape. And so that's how you get a duck that's more susceptible to harvest. That's another part of why there aren't enough refuges. If we had more refuges, they'd trade around more. We would have a better system.
So I've been researching while you were talking. So there's 588 national wildlife refuges in the United States. How many of those are waterfowl? Do you know?
No. Jim, do you know?
I do not, but I will. Kind of a side story here. My daughter's finishing grad school, and her capstone project for her master's deal is putting together that very list for Delta waterfowl on how many federal refuges we have in the country, how many of them have inlet and violet rest areas and where'd the money come from, the seed money come from to start those rest areas. So ask me that question when she finishes up this semester, next semester of school, and I'll be able to answer that for you.
Hey, Rich, you hit the horns for her. That's a great project. That's awesome, Jimbo. You raised that one right. You raised that one right.
I've tried, but it's pretty cool that's your capstone project. She's doing that for Delta Waterfowl. So I'm pretty proud of her for taking on that project, which is going to be pretty serious. Anyway, that kind of answers your question, but it really just says I really don't know.
So I'm gonna comment on something he said in the middle of the that last little piece. Is that he's talking about and all of us want to kill more ducks, and I honestly think that we have evolved a little bit more. And Jimbo's, again, know way more about this than me, but it seems like I think people would rather be sure they can go duck hunting more, and they're getting to where they would rather be able to go duck hunting more to the point, but still have more ducks each year and have the population flourishing more than just plain, I want to go kill as many as I can kill. I just feel like we have evolved. Some tougher years has made us better stewards and gamekeepers or whatever for turkeys, but especially even waterfowl now. Now, it's so much more complex because they come from like Canada and north, they migrate, they move around. It's not nearly the same as other things we manage and care for. But it just seems like I think people are, if they were given a choice, for me, I'll speak for me, I think more people, if they said, okay, you can still kill like 6 ducks, but we're going to limit you to 40 days instead of 60. Or, you know what, you can just kill 4 ducks and we'll keep it at 60 or give you 70 days. I'd take the longer season every day and shoot less ducks for me. And I think more people are like that than used to be. I don't know. What do you think, Jimbo?
Man, I hear both sides of it, Toxie, and I think that's a great theory. I'm kind of leaning more towards I want the days over the ducks, but there's more and more people wanting to shorten the days and shorten the ducks, or, let's shorten the days, give me the ducks kind of thing. So it's a man, I'm not going to say it's 50-50, but I'm going to say more people would want the days versus the ducks.
Yeah. Hey, let me go hunting.
Hey, Brad. So if I'm a guy and I'm listening to you and paying attention, and this makes sense, and so I'm saying, okay, guys, our little club, we're only going to hunt this 2 days a week. What, Brad? Could you help me understand what your research has shown? What do I need to look for those 2 days? Would it surprise me that the weather isn't what I think it would be to be the best 2 days?
Well, that's a good, I see what you're getting at. So we've done 2 different they're kind of together in 2 papers that kind of together tell a story of like when are ducks moving the most and when are hunters shooting the most. And they're not the same times, right? So, backwater, classically, when we look at the number of shots, backwater, we're seeing way more shots happening on a backwater, which is when the rivers flood back and we get a lot of water on the system. But actually, the ducks are moving a lot less. They find a place where they're happy, but it's that exploration flight that kind of gets them killed. If I had to pick a day where I want to be out in the blind, I want to be right before a big storm pushes in. Our data shows that when the barometric pressure is dropping, that's a big mover of ducks. But for us, West Tennessee, sunny days kills ducks. And, I'm sure it's the same for Arkansas too. Mm-hmm. So like if, you gave me those conditions of like right before a storm on a sunny day, when the water's already out, I'm going to have a good day. You talked about, like days versus ducks. You got to keep in mind also, we know that like bag limit really doesn't matter much for how many ducks are killed because there's not many people going out there every time and killing 4 mallards, right? Those are the lucky few. Days kill ducks. So if we want to increase the duck population, if hunting is affecting duck population, which I'm not, again, sure it is, you want a huge reduction in the number of days, not necessarily the bag limit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So can you look? I think I know why, but I may not, and the others may not know why. The sunshine aspect of killing ducks. Can you explain that just a little bit?
I want Jim's input too, but I mean, for us, I think it's 2 things. I think the decoys stand out a little bit more. I mean, this has affected how I hunt, the way I think about the way ducks see decoys, going up in a plane and seeing a million different types of decoy setups, all that. But shadows are a big one. Ripples on the water are another. I think those two things are the big things. And I think the barometric pressure dropping out also pushes wind in, which gives decoys ripples. What do you think, Jim?
I think you're exactly right. The shadows is the big thing. It helps you hide. I mean, people say, I want it cloudy. We lost some ducks today because of high gray clouds. Had we had some sunshine or rain, we'd have killed them.
One thing I would say is, we talked about shadows. If you're up in a plane, the one thing that sticks out the most is an empty hole in the blind. Like if you're having a person and their face in the blind is not nearly as obvious as just having an empty hole in the blind, that big spot. And so what I tell people is I'd rather have you have your face out and staring at these ducks if need be versus just completely stepping out and letting that hole empty. Ideally we'd have a cover for it, but that goes back to.
I had never thought about that, but I guess this drone footage and maybe flying an airplane is really showing things from a bird's eye view that we've never seen.
Yeah. We've always killed more ducks not being in blinds. I mean, we have.
Sure.
Well, he's saying that not being in there, if you don't have it covered,
I'm just saying not having a blind at all. It's the thing that sticks out on the landscape more than anything. It's a big black box.
Well, in some cases, you got to have a blind. Yeah. It's just like, but what he's telling you to do is like you need to blind the blind.
Yeah.
In other words, today's world. I tell you what, we built a new one, and it was on a berm. Y'all know where it is, right below our camp there, and so. It kind of fallen in and been there a really long time. We've had so many. It's been a great place for a long time. So, but we moved it to where it was hidden way more. And before we even finished it out and said, okay, for sure, we built the frame one. And then Brett works for us as a drone. We flew over it with a drone. It's crazy. I moved it where there was just it was actually where trees are over it. And it's, it just where it sits. And it's like so much harder to tell there's even a blind there. Anxious to see if there's a difference before long. Because the other one was a blind, but it was clearly, if you flew over and looked in a drone, it is just like what ducks should be conditioned to. There's a box. It's kind of an unusual, unnatural-looking box sitting there on the edge of the water. So I know what that is. I mean, it's so easy to pick them out once you've seen how they are.
Do you have something, Mike?
Yeah, so I'm curious about the radio collar and that. So I mean, are you doing male and female? I mean, hens. I mean, drakes and hens, or just hens because their odds are they won't get shot as much, or how do you just don't discriminate on I guess the gender of the ducks that y'all are tracking?
Yeah, so we've put out over 1,000 at this point, and we put for mallards we put males, females, adults, juveniles. Whatever we can get. We also have a couple hundred out on gadwall right now. I'm telling the story of mallards. Story for gadwall is pretty different. They're definitely a different duck. They move a lot more. There's cool stuff there too. But we are indiscriminate generally. We just want to know how they're distributing themselves across the landscape.
Is there anything from that the radio collaring and monitoring where these ducks go that as a hunter that really surprised you?
Yeah, so our ducks are Tennessee ducks. So our ducks, about 25% come back to the exact location, fly thousands of miles, 6,000 miles, and come back to the exact same point. And there's some refuges and complexes that have higher return rates than others, which is something we're interested in. They definitely is something that they're queuing in on. Most of our ducks don't go back further south. Basically all of our migrations occur by the end of December. So anytime you're in January, those ducks are already priming to come back up north. So you could maybe get a reverse migration, but more often it's just cold weather's freezing stuff up and pushing them off their patterns. So you're not really getting fresh ducks, so to say, in the month of January. You're just getting more hungry, colder ducks. But, having said most of our ducks come back to Tennessee, Boot Heel of Missouri, stuff like that. I have a buddy, Paul Link, who does research in Louisiana. His ducks come back to Louisiana. And so that to me talks about these weird metapopulation dynamics, right? Mm-hmm. This idea that a Louisiana duck might be a Louisiana duck and a Tennessee duck might be a Tennessee duck. Hell, an Arkansas duck might be an Arkansas duck. Mm-hmm. And what happens when we shoot them out? What happens when the conditions on the ground in their wintering ground aren't good? Louisiana, their quality of habitat is declining rapidly, and so is their mallard population. and they're going to say that it's all short stopping of ducks. Maybe not though. What if it's not? Yeah. And these are things that get my brain kind of going.
Don't you think it would have to be a combination of things? There's no way it's like one thing.
It's not one
Surely
thing.
Surely, obviously. Less
there's
food.
Nothing that's one thing.
What are we talking about? They got to eat every day. So if there's not food there, then they're going to tend over time to go there less,
Well, Paul was, one thing that you got to keep in mind is my ducks are flying 2 miles, 3 miles to go eat.
Right.
Down in Louisiana, they might go 10 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles. The energy expenditure right there tells the whole story.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I mean, and then, I'll tell you some other cool stuff. Like we've linked this with genetics. You talk about evolution. I mean, we're working on a paper now that I think is fascinating, but our ducks generally only migrate, either they make one stopover, maybe, and then they come down to Tennessee and they stop. And it's genetically linked. Like there's some individuals that migrate really fast and get here. There are Halloween ducks. They get here before the season. Mm-hmm. They experience maybe 60 to 70 days of hunting pressure compared to most of our ducks, which if they don't do that, they experience up to 160 days of hunting pressure.
Did you notice that your Halloween ducks were late this year by chance?
Yeah. They're about a week late.
Yeah, here too.
So, but in general, they're calendar ducks, whatever you want to call it, and they make up a big portion of our ducks, and they're just exposed to so much less hunting pressure, and they only have to learn their system once. So we see one big spike in the probability that they're going to get harvested, and that's opening weekend, and then they'll almost all surely survive until there's a big freeze that gets them off their pattern. That's how you make unkillable ducks. That's how evolution factors into stale ducks. That's it. The mechanism is you migrate early and you learn your landscape.
Hey, Lanny.
Hey, Bobby.
Have you ever wondered if your feeder went off or if it's even got corn in it?
Yeah, you sit there at night wondering about it.
Moultrie has solved this. This is some high-tech stuff.
Fits on any feeder that helps monitor the level of feed and lets you know if it went off or not. And you can remotely control it.
Can I look at your feeder if we're on the hub?
I really hope not, but we're going to have to talk to the guys at Moultrie about that. This is the biggest thing in feeders since corn.
That's saying a lot.
With Feed Hub, there's no more stressing, no more guessing. This technology allows you to remotely monitor your feeders.
We always say feed safely, do it the right way.
No doubt about it.
To learn more about it, visit moultrieproducts.com/feedhub. It's a great invention.
Unbelievable technology and products brought to us by our buddies at Moultrie. Nosler is known for their bullets, and now they're making suppressors. Nosler suppressors are made for hunting. Adding a Nosler suppressor to your rifle will make you a quieter, more accurate, and more effective hunter. Protect your hearing and disturb less game with a Nosler suppressor. The time to hunt quiet is now. Learn more at nosler.com.
I've heard a lot of terms today that I've heard all my life. Stale ducks and
Halloween ducks.
Halloween, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And look, Toxie mentioned it at the beginning. I'm kind of a romantic when it comes to duck hunting.
Yeah.
Just the old way guys used to do things, the old decoys, all that just kind of intrigued me.
That's the one thing I'm thinking about duck hunting. I mean, if people, the law allows you and you can go every day and pound them, hey, each to his own within the limits. I just think that as we get better and better communication like we're doing today, and so many people are listening to what we do, it's just like, let's all learn from each other, especially learn from our biologists and our seasoned veterans of a lifetime like Jim, and get better at it so we can enjoy it. But each to his own. If somebody wants to hand make their decoys and hunt a certain way, the time spent is what's most valuable of all, and to get to spend it out there. That's kind of what I went back to. If I had to shoot less ducks to keep a full duck season and be able to go still, I'd give anything for someone up there to figure out they need to give us a gift down here in the far south to be able to hunt a little bit in February, because that's always when our best duck hunting would have been,
So Brad, this may not be a fair question, but can you look into a crystal ball and just give your opinion of what the next 20 years might be like?
Oh.
Are we going to make duck hunting even harder the way that we're doing it now?
Hold that thought, Brad. Hold that thought. I'm going to add to something that Toxie just said, but this will be relative to possibly your answer. about learning and education, because over time and better communication skills, better communication opportunities. Here we are, Brad's in Tennessee, I'm in Arkansas, y'all are in West Point, Mississippi. We're able to communicate and help each other get better callers, better camouflage, better decoys, better transportation to get the ducks. We've made it easier to get to places where ducks used to could rest. So man's ability to get better at what they do is allowing ducks to get better at what they do. So I'll lead off to Brad's crystal ball in the next 20 years.
There's two points to this. I'm not somebody that's jaded. I think, there's always a predator prey dynamic that Jim's saying, like it's going to go back and forth. The other thing is, I really wish, how do I put this? We have become very stable with managing ducks. 60 days in Mississippi Flyway, 60 days, 6 ducks. And that predictability has produced a culture where that everything is expected and investment is just predictable because of that. And we're putting a lot of investment into land for wintering waterfowl so we can harvest them, while the federal government is saying, well, duck populations must be doing great because we keep doing the same thing. So we're not going to fund the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service the way we should to make sure it's good. And so I don't wish for bad things on, the population, but I wouldn't mind to see us have a couple seasons where we reverse to a 330 or something, just to remind people that this is a real resource that requires investment up and down.
Yeah, when y'all were talking, I'd made the note to say the one thing, in all my preaching here is that I would preach on the hardest is that with all the improvements and all the things we're doing and all, we better first, above everything else, we better get better at taking care of them before anything else. Because I feel like if we do better and better and better job of that, it leaves room to all kind of other outcomes that most are good, regardless of that. But if we don't do that, it won't even matter about some of the rest of this. Even if you go to painstaking detail to plant and care for and rest areas and all that, I mean, we're pushing water uphill, and that's not good. It doesn't last long.
Can I hit on something right there, which we kind of touched on, but it's I'll get a little preachy here, but like it kills me around where we hunt. Sometimes people will be pulling water off immediately after hunting season because they got to get ready to plant the crops and whatever. It's their own thing. But those ducks are going, especially the hens, they're coming through, and this is when like things like moist soil are super critical. Everyone wants to go corn, flooded ag. Moist soil is ducks prefer it a ton because there's so much other ag out there. Like moist soil is really good, but like those invertebrates up and down, there's little things that we can do here in their wintering grounds that could make a big difference for their migration up north. And that would be leaving water on through, the end of March, and, making sure that we have some kind of swampy, moist soil area for them to get those invertebrates. Those are small things that could pay big dividends.
It's funny how that's the first things we did. And even in a non-central part of the flyway area here, when we get water at any time, and it could be October, like y'all talk about pre-Halloween, it could be October, it could be November, and of course even now, when we get water within a day, they're covered up with ducks. They remember, because we've been doing it for so long.
They sample the places they sample. We're doing an analysis right now with one of my master's students, but the places they sample up in the spring, they come back to in the fall.
I would say, and I think for sure y'all would back me up, when the further you're off a main flyway with fresh ducks flying all the time and whatever, the more incumbent it's going to be to develop your own rest area. If you want to, it's really, for us, we wouldn't have it without that.
And keep it a rest area. Follow patcher, you're coming back same place all the time, super important.
Yep.
Hey, Brad, you touched on something a minute ago, and I think I have taken for granted, since I've lived here, going on 29 years, it's been 6 ducks in 60 days. But Jim, do y'all remember like waiting to see what they announced, if it was just how long the season was going to be and how many ducks? Was that a thing back years ago?
Yeah, you look forward to the May pond count every year, and then there used to be a fall flight index they do, and then in early August, flyway councils would meet and they'd send their recommendation in to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And then you'd know something by mid-August. And a lot of years when I was in the guide business, we wouldn't know the exact season dates until middle of August when they announced what the seasons were going to be. And then they announced the dates and how much season limits and whatnot could be. That was a big deal. And everybody looked forward to that. And I understand now the probability, better data, better information they can do it be a year out, but man, I'm not so sure we weren't more on top of it when it was year to year.
Given the nature of things today, there would be some changes, where we give up a little bit or we get a little bit more, or they found a way to allow us to hunt a little more, but it'll be better for the ducks. I don't know. It just seems like it would have evolved some, to y'all's point.
You got to keep in mind, like U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, their funding is just getting more and more cut. You have, one person doing what was 5 people's jobs. I mean, that's not unheard of there, and so.
But you know what? We've got a ton of people like you that care and do it for a living. Just like you said, you're following your calling and you love what you're doing. And there's some great ones we've talked to them. Why don't you, you're doing so much of the work for them if they just listen,
So if I think about it, in the last, and I consider myself, it took me getting here to start wanting to duck.
Yeah, Bobby's duck hunt was a wood duck.
Yeah, and Alabama was wood duck.
I thought that's how it all started.
But I've seen some years that you could kill more than one pintail. I've seen that kind of fluctuate.
Oh, the point system. Remember 10 ducks if they're 10-point ducks.
And then canvas backs. It seems like every year there's kind of a little fluctuation in the canvas backs.
They do.
And I've seen the wood ducks go from maybe 1 to now I think you can kill 3.
Yeah, but I think it's coming back down now.
So Brad, what do the next few years look like? Do you see some changes coming?
Depends how dry it is in the prairies this year. If it's dry in the prairies this year, you might get set into a conservative season for the flyway, Mississippi flyway. If not, no, I don't see anything changing. More and more evidence is suggesting, at least in the models that they create, that hunter harvest isn't as detrimental. So they're that under that kind of framework, duck populations can get lower and lower, and you can keep harvest regulations the same. And so that by moving that lower and lower, we might be in 660 for a long time.
So if you look at the matrix on AHM, and Lord knows I don't need to be somebody getting into the nuts and bolts of AHM other than the matrix. When you look at it, you see mallard BPOP versus ponds. And if you just look at that, you can see where becomes an inversion where it has to go to restrictive, and the window for moderate is very, very small. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't change this and that. I'm not going to go there because I don't know near enough about it. But if you get a chance, look up the matrix for AHM and how it works, and you'll get a lot out of just looking at that.
What would a guy Google to find that out?
Oh, adaptive harvest management.
It's the entire federal framework. I agree with Jim. Everyone should be familiar with that. If you want to understand the regulations, there's no better testament to science managing a species than waterfowl. Federal government is data in, data out. It's legit, and it's probably, for me as a scientist, the most attractive part of working in the waterfowl community. There's no county politician that's going to come in and change the regulations tomorrow on waterfowl. This is science. Science informed.
There's no greater of the main things in the hunting industry, the main loves. There's no greater challenge of us all working together as a team like the waterfowl.
AHM is the framework for all, like it is the gold standard. I mean, Tennessee just moved. We just worked with TWRA to move deer and turkey into an AHM framework for our management for the state. I mean, it's the gold standard.
So is the mallard duck the most studied bird in the world?
Oh, I don't know about the world, but waterfowl would be for sure.
Yeah, it's up there as probably the most studied animal because it occurs everywhere. There's Europeans producing incredible amounts of literature on it. That and probably the whitetail deer and sika deer are probably the 3 biggest studied species.
I wouldn't have put
whitetails for sure.
Don't leave out my wild turkeys.
Yeah. Hey, Brad, is there something that when you were getting ready for this, that you said, surely they'll ask me about this that we need to be asking.
You know what? I know, but I think about property design. A lot of people here are going to be like, okay, well, rest area is great, but what does the rest area need to look like? What is it? And what I would say is, we talked about, if I had enough property, what would I look like? I would always have, ideally, a very small area that I hunted in the middle between two rest areas. So I would have my own little miniature traffic spot. And then in that, I would put all my good, valuable stuff in my rest areas. So like my food would go in my rest areas. People I help manage their places, it's food in the rest areas. It's the best quality stuff goes, and that's how you keep birds where you want them. And then we just hope that traffic, I mean, this is not rocket science, places have been doing this long before I said it.
That's pretty interesting, the way he mentioned the two and then getting in the middle. That's kind of what Jim talked about earlier, wanting to be on the line of where they're going.
It's like they said, the analogy of the travel corridor for deer instead of hunting over the food plot.
I bet there's a lot of...
I do have one question for Jim. So you've been sitting there in your studio or office or whatever, and there's a map of all your duck hunting right behind you. Move your head to there you go. He's got a pin. Take a picture of that land. He's got a pin on that spot.
I've
right
already
there.
taken a picture.
Okay,
of it. Yeah.
I see that map back there. So I won't put it out there on the net or anything. But you're sitting in front of a map of all your favorite duck hunting right there.
That's actually a map that's put together by a guy named Brent Birch, Grand Prairie, Arkansas Grand Prairie Waterfowl. You can't see it close enough, but it's all the established duck clubs in the Biomeda Basin from Interstate 40 to the Arkansas River.
Wow.
It's missing some over on the White River side, and it doesn't go north above Interstate 40, but it's pretty cool. There's some really cool legacy which way my hand go? Legacy properties right in there.
Yep.
Yeah. There's some really cool, even today with all the changes, some of the best bottomland hardwood mallard duck hunting is on that map right there behind me.
Well, and I'll be willing to bet you the ones that are the best and staying the best are not just only because they're in that legacy area, but they have evolved to doing a better job of caring for them.
100%. You go talk to all those guys, and there's a great community folks that, hey man, we're doing this. What are you doing? What are you seeing? How's this work? How's that working? And it's just the stuff we're talking about here. The better you care for it, the better you take care of that resource all across the board, from not just the waterfowl, but the habitat they live in, the trees that are there, all of that comes together makes it better for all of us. And if we don't take care of those resources, we're not going to get to enjoy it as much as we do now. No, and for the future especially.
That's the whole, our prayer for all the Gamekeeper initiative and all the ones out there is that you become to where you actually enjoy that. And I know some people's like, no, I don't be like that. I'm a hunter. Man, I'm as hardcore hunter as ever was born. But I love and have more fun having them than I do shooting them. Does that mean I don't love shooting them? I love shooting them. But I'm just saying and I do think we have evolved a lot. And I think, Jimbo, you've evolved a lot. And I mean, having tough times will make us evolve a lot and listen to the voices like the good doctor and all. But just that little point is like, get to where it's more fun, caring for them than even shooting them. And then, honestly, that's when your shooting's going to get better.
And it's not always about how many. I like to smell burned powder and have a heavy duck strap, and my dog be tired and all that. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's part of why we do it. But getting to enjoy it is, and enjoy just taking apart and not feeling like you just got to go kill every one of them that's flying is way better. Because there's still some folks out there who would love to see a duck blow up in a fiery ball of fire and smoke and hit the water. I'm like a little more than that.
Yeah, I just wish it was not. The hard thing about turkeys, too, to a degree, but especially waterfowl, is just so many people. I personally would love to be able to power, enable, put the right products in their hands like what y'all do, Jimbo, and then they have access. And there's just so many people that love to be duck hunters that don't have good access. That's what I would wish we could figure out better. I don't know what to do, but I just want to put that out there.
I heard all about this property you keep talking about. It sounds like That means we all got names.
But you're the person.
My man was he was going exactly where I was going.
We went right back at you though. You're the one that said how we better lay off of it and have all this rest done to it. So by listening to you, I think we ought to cut back on it a little more.
It's hard to cut back anymore than hard to cut back.
Yeah, my boys are not going to be happy with what y'all got me going to today. I tell you what.
Brad, tell us a little bit about you. Like, what do you like to do? Are you a hardcore get in the flooded timber and chase mallards, or what are you wanting to do?
Well, you got to keep in mind, I came from Long Island, so all my hunting was in salt water. Oof. So, sea ducks, black ducks, brant, things like that. And so I have not been to many timber hunts where even if I didn't kill anything, it was like heaven to me. Like the idea that I'm sitting against a tree working a duck, and it's coming in like it's a songbird, working through it blows my mind every time. So if you give me like one way I want to hunt ducks, it's in a flooded timber.
Yep.
It's all day.
No question about it.
No questions. No
Well,
questions. And it doesn't matter if I kill one.
Yeah, your ticket to Disney World is going to hang out with Jimbo for a day or two. Mm-hmm. Big time.
Oh, yeah. Trust me.
The Dalai Lama, that what you just said.
He knows me now. How's it going?
He's the Dalai.
Remember this
smile.
Yeah.
No, I'm really blessed to have a couple properties that have been kind enough to put me out in West Tennessee. And, it's also different for me. I've only been in Tennessee for now 6 years. And so the idea of backwater and everything, like today, I'm going out tonight to go hunting for tomorrow morning. And the river jumped about 12 feet in a day.
Mm-hmm. Right? I'd give anything for like 2 feet here.
So right. So where I was hunting a week ago, my blind's underwater now. And now it's a whole different game. And so that of like trying to figure it out, where are we going to go? What are we going to traffic? It's intoxicating. It's a different pattern every day. You don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah. So Doc, if you're on the side of the river and you see 6-8 birds and they get in the sunshine just right and you can see a band on one of those birds, are you going to target that bird with a band?
You bet.
There we go. He's human. I knew he was human.
No, I don't. My life's goal is to shoot one of my transmitter ducks. No luck yet, but I'm hoping to. Why not? It's cool. You want a cool fact? What's weird is not a lot of our ducks trade across the Mississippi River. Okay, but a lot of the ducks that are shot on the Tennessee side of the Mississippi River have rice in their crop.
Huh.
That much of their rice farmers in Tennessee?
Nope. What happens is it just goes to show our confirmation bias, right? So if I ask everybody where their ducks come from, it's all the ducks come from Arkansas and come over here and just roost here, and then they eat over in Missouri and Arkansas. But what's actually happening is a couple small percentage, 2-3% of the ducks might cross the river, but across a couple 100,000 ducks, that's 30,000 ducks.
A lot of ducks, yeah.
Well, on top of that, they don't know where they are. They're actually moving. They're doing a migration east to west. And that's when they're going to get killed.
Yeah,
so that's how you get those kind of confirmation biases that aren't actually based on real biology.
That's what, Jimbo, that's the same old time forever when I was young. And even they say we'd have a great hunt and, man, they work good today. And someone would go, yeah, those are new ducks. They're different. And
look at their feet.
Is that the thing, Jimbo? Is that a real thing? When they're new to the area, they're not as up on the ways. Is that true?
I think there's something to that. There might not necessarily be fresh ones from up north, but they're fresh to your local area.
Right.
And it takes them a minute to figure things out. That's why, again, fronts, whatever kind of front there is, I've mentioned it a couple times here today. You hear a lot of folks talk, man, I hope we don't have no thunderstorms tonight. Hope we don't have any bad lightning. It'll run our ducks off. Well, I've been on both sides of that. I've been on the side where you lose them because they leave where you've been hunting them to go sample other areas. And I've been on the good side of it where ducks is moving in because your river raised up, water levels have changed. Now you're picking up ducks. So, yeah, I think that all can change them up through the course of a year. As much as I like to hunt sunshine, high pressure, and a good wind, after a little bit of that, you got to change that weather pattern up. You got to do something to it to change them up, to change them up.
All right, guys. So listen now. We've got to let Brad go. He's got to.
Well, I just want to tell Brad real quick. If you want to exploit Jimbo's weaknesses, and it ain't ducks because he's got it run out of his ears everywhere. I do know that the turkey population in northern Tennessee is phenomenal. Those hillbilly turkeys are a lot easier to fool with, gobble a lot more. He does have a weak spot, so you might talk off online. You might could swindle a swap out right there if you got turkeys.
We can definitely make a trade.
What I tell you?
First time I met Jim, he was in Tennessee hunting turkeys, trying to kill our turkeys.
My other passion in life. Don't ask me which one I'd rather do. No. Thankfully, they come at different times of the year.
All right, so look, Toxie. So Dr. Brad Cohen has a trivia question. He's going to try to stump us. Brad,
are we still 100%?
We're 100%.
Still 100%.
Brad, so here's your.
Take it easy on us, Brad.
Yeah, but we don't want.
All right, I see now.
It's for Bobby.
You want something from that we found in our research? Something cool. What's the fastest one of our ducks migrated? How fast did they fly, and for how long?
You mean miles per hour or days?
Miles per hour, straight up. Miles per hour. How fast did they fly, and for how many hours?
One more question: do you measure ground speed, or is it wind aided, or
wind aided?
Okay, so it had
Mac, you should be typing right now instead of.
I mean, if you had
trying to be honest,
if you had a 40-mile-an-hour jet stream up there, that's 40 miles an hour already. So.
I think it'd be faster than 40.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be. I'm just saying it would depend on that. I don't know.
This is kind of a really tough one. It's a little bit out of
say just because it sounds sensational, 100 miles an hour with the wind.
That's right. No, that's right. 100 over
100%, baby. Toxic says this again.
Wow. Because we've had ducks that have gone 100 miles an hour for 8 hours straight.
Wow.
They get a tailwind. Then they fly over 800 miles in a night.
That is incredible.
Because I mean, on their own, they can fly 40 or 50, right?
Yeah, you're probably looking at something like that. A high end would be 40. Normal would be about 30.
Yeah, so you get a just like flying somewhere, you get a 60-knot tailwind. There's 100.
Well, the question you should be asking is: this is a tailwind that's way up in the stratosphere.
How'd they get up there?
How do they know that? How do they know that that's?
Yeah,
and how did they get there? That's always been cool
bingo,
to me.
Like.
I don't want
something that fascinates
me. We're going to go down.
day.
We need to do this again and go down the rabbit hole of those things. How do they know? Because there's so many of those. How does nature know? Because I mean, I can remember, and here we're not on the main flyway, and then having a spot had all this food. We've been waiting. We didn't have any ducks. It was a new place. Kind of in the middle of nowhere out here. And then one day, when I know the day before there might have been 10 ducks on it, and that's it. And I've been looking at it almost every day all that year. And then I look up the next afternoon, and there is literally a vortex, like a tornado of ducks in the afternoon. Where'd they come from? How'd they know? We're not even on the main flyway. And within, the next day, there was a couple thousand ducks on this pond. And how did they know? I mean, do they just know from a distance if they see ducks, their own fresh, hot food or something? I don't know. How'd they know? I've never seen. How do they know stuff like that?
That's a new segment, Bobby.
Yeah,
I do know.
One other thing I wanted to throw out there, and this was a question I was wondering about, but it's just you guys know that like the coolest fact in waterfowl is that buffleheads nest in trees, right?
I did not know that.
In the boreal forest. So they go into the interior part way up North America.
Wow.
They have to be 2 years old till they can even start breeding. And then they nest in trees. Cavity nesters.
I had no idea. But then they go
trees. Like I'm thinking that I messed up. Cavity nesters.
Gotcha.
And yeah.
But then you never see them. And what little we see them here, they're on wide open spaces.
Bingo, right? So okay, that is the coolest fact of all waterfowl ecology. There you go.
How about that? So Brad, for that question, because it was so good, you just won a Drake shirt.
All right.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Look at me go.
Compliments of Jim Ronquest.
Thanks for answering it correctly.
Good deal.
And thanks to Jim. Jimbo's going to get you one. He's going to reach in that closet and send you one.
Look.
Jimbo can give me his personal number so that way I know who to follow up for a timber hunt.
I like the way Brad
this guy's on right here.
You better come guns blazing with your turkey spot if you want to go with Jimbo.
That's right.
I hear you. I'll burn a couple spots.
Brad, we've enjoyed this.
Yeah, we need to do it more often.
And I think I like the way you think. I like that smile. I like how passionate you are about wildlife. I see us doing a lot more of this, talking with you and some television stuff and working on some projects.
I'd love to. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
And we've heard, we keep hearing about all this, the banding research that you're doing. So we've got to learn. We've got to keep up with you and learn more. I think Rob Kenny got some footage with him.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you what, we have tried banding down here and catching ducks.
It's not easy.
It is not easy. So kudos to you to get that done.
I would love to know, because even without the radio calls, we could learn over the time where ours kind of go and come from a little bit more if we could ban specifically right here. So Bobby's the one. I hope we get that figured out someday because I would love to know a little bit. But you're right. It's like a big have a heart trap almost trying to get them, and it is not easy.
No, they're slick.
Yeah, we got some traps we can make you a deal on if you.
Yeah, we sure do.
Stainless steel.
Hey, look, before we use,
I got one more question to the duck guys.
Go ahead.
We've talked about this a lot in the blind. How well can ducks smell?
Is that you want me to, Jim?
Do y'all think ducks have a good sense of smell?
I know. I pretty much know the scientific answer is they don't have an olfactory gland. But a buddy of mine was doing some video stuff several years ago in a froze up, flooded cornfield, and he was getting some. Like up close, 5 foot away shots of ducks on ice and just cool stuff. As them ducks got behind him, they were flushing. Mm-hmm. Now. Man, I don't know. I use the term "they can smell you" as a general term, and one of my biologist buddies gives me hell about that. Ducks can't smell; they don't have an olfactory gland, but they sense it somehow or another.
I agree.
They sense your presence somehow. I just say they can smell it. Again, I know Brad's going to say no, they don't have an olfactory gland, but I think there's some research kind of showing that they do have a little bit of smell or taste or something going on. I'll let Brad pick up from there.
They can't smell. No, I'm just kidding.
Boy, you hung him out there.
No, in all seriousness, I wonder about a lot because, they don't have an olfactory gland, but they also, they have the ability to taste. And there is something too, I wonder a lot about how they find food.
Yes.
At a local level, because like we'll put out a thing of bait and within an hour, if it's the right spot, the ducks will be on that bait. And that's muddy water, a foot deep.
Exactly.
Like, could they, and
how
so
do
I'm
it
not,
know? Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Again, I think they can smell it somehow, some way.
That's why I asked, Ron, because we have seen this a lot. I have seen it a lot. We've talked about it in the blind, and you blame it on me not wearing enough deodorant. But none of the fact, if ducks get downwind from us, they won't stay there. And they can't see us at the time. It's just
I don't know about that.
I don't know. I'm just thankful I didn't ask you about the moon.
I didn't know that was your example. No, that's not true.
Yeah, you can. So I remember this story when we first learned about how do deer find food and whatever. And again, a knowledgeable biologist like will watch deer. Don't you see deer all the time walk up to each other and they're constantly smelling the other one around the mouth.
Yep.
And their nose is so good they can just like, you found a turnip patch.
Yep.
Oh, you found acres.
Where's that
And
maximum
so
at?
if they smell something they really like the smell of food wise on a deer, they'll keep on and follow until they go back to it. I wonder if ducks, they may not can smell, but I wonder how do they find that others are on food so fast? Are they constantly, chipping at each other's mouths, kind of trying to taste what they got in there or something, Who knows? They find it quick, that's for sure.
Biggity.
Weird thing about ducks is that, right? They kind of give themselves away too, right? Like, but how's the first one? They might do a feed chuckle, but and tell you like, oh, there's food here, which is a weird thing if you think about why is that duck telling you that there's food here?
Right.
But also, how does that first one find it?
Yeah.
How does the first one find it?
I must smell it. I got to smell it.
Yeah.
That's a chicken other egg thing. Another rabbit hole.
Oh, look, Brad, don't do this to us, Brad. I don't want to encourage him. So. All right, guys, this has been really good. Toxie, you cannot possibly have another question to ask you.
Oh, I got questions all day. I was just actually trying to keep Jimbo out of the woods this afternoon. And we may have done it. I don't know. He might could run out the back door and still get out there, but it's
anything left unsaid that you need to say, Lane?
No, thanks for what both y'all are doing.
Absolutely.
No question about it.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Appreciate it, guys.
Don't let Bobby shoot before you,
Yeah,
Mr. Jim.
that's right.
Oh,
He will.
be good. We'll be good. His daughter, Miss Jessie's coming, so I know he wouldn't.
Oh,
cheat in front of her.
Yeah, that's his make him behave card right there.
That is. All right, Brad. We have really enjoyed it. So, is there an Instagram page a guy can go follow you or your lab?
Yeah. So it's Cohen, Cohen, Wildlife Lab. Look it in on Facebook or Instagram, and we post constantly all the information that we're producing.
Yep, I would encourage guys to go follow that. And he's really immersed in this wildlife thing, and he comes from Mike Chamberlain. He's a protege. So.
Yep, the coaching tree.
Yep, he is.
Yep.
All right, guys.
Learn from the pro.
We have enjoyed this. I'm looking around the room. I know, Richie, have you got anything else to add?
No, you guys hit on everything. So
Yeah,
we're good.
Who won the prize on the
The prize here would be Carrie. I believe you wrote Oakley 84. I can't read Bobby's writing.
Yeah.
But he won a Gamekeeper
Okie.
t-shirt.
Gamekeepers
Okie.
t-shirt. All right.
Okie. Carrie Okie.
Okay.
Oh gosh,
It's probably not a real person.
he's the way he's laughing. There's no way.
All right.
So we're running. Look, it's worth another minute to just say we're running close here, and I don't know when this might air, but I think we'd behoove us to wish all our listeners or downloaders and people a big Merry Christmas, and for what you do for us, please, even if this happens after Christmas, bow your head and many thanks for what we have to look out for. The good Lord gave us, and especially more than anything, our Lord and Savior, who we celebrate Christmas for. God's gift to the world. So don't forget that if you're a Mossy Oak or Gamekeeper person, because it gives me chill bumps thinking how thankful we are to have this conversation and enjoy what we do for a living. So
No doubt about it.
Well said.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yep. All right. That's perfect. Thank you, Toxie. Why don't you say goodbye, Mac?
Goodbye, Mac.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronquest of Drake.